Well, I hope you guys love that intro music as much as I love that intro music. I know you can't see me when the video starts, but I'm like in the background dancing. If you guys are watching on Instagram, you can see me dance for the intro music, but you guys don't get to hear it. So none of you are getting the full experience of the intro to the show.
The dancing's not that great, I'm not going to lie.
Oh, come on.
I'm just kidding. It's a bop, though. It's a bop.
It is a bop. Welcome to Unapologetic Live. I'm your host, Amala Panobi. Taylor's here. Boom, boom, boom.
Boo! What's up?
You're so much better at doing that sound than I am. I promise we were going to program it. Hopefully next week we'll actually have that sound.
I actually asked Scott to do it today, so by Monday we'll do it.
Scott, what have you done? It could have been a most
No, I asked him like 5 seconds
Friday.
ago, so he's off the hook.
Okay, sorry, Scott. You're back in my good graces. Guys, welcome. I hope you guys are having a fantastic Friday. I sure as hell am. I'm going to be on Laura Ingraham tonight on Fox. We pre-taped that this morning, so you'll see me there. We just did an interview with one Liz Wheeler, so next week she'll be on the show, and you guys will get to see that. And today we're going to be doing a week in review, talking about the hottest stories that have hit our timelines on social media, giving you our perspective on them, because throughout the week we like to focus in on certain topics. Now we're going to give you an overall review of what has happened this week, and we're going to talk a number of things. Jen Psaki's leaving the White House as the press secretary. She's being replaced by a black lesbian. Apparently that's how we introduce people now. We just do race and sexuality. So welcome to the new world. I'm sure her pronouns are she, her, considering the identity demographics there. So Jen Psaki's out, which means now we can talk about Jen Psaki. And we're actually going to review a photo that was put up of Peter Doocy and Jen Psaki, talk about that. Netflix fires back at its woke employees and says, hey guys, we gotta really cater to our audience, which means differing perspectives. So if you guys don't like it, get the hell out of here. Also, video game companies are being pressured to make a statement on Roe versus Wade after that draft opinion saying that it might just be overturned was released. We want gamers keeping up with our political and social issues and having a hot take on Roe v. Wade, so we have that to look forward to. Plus, are white students lying on their college applications about their race in order to get the advantages that come along with not being white and getting into college? And if so, is that a good thing? Dropbox, affirmative action hiring for its company. The Texas Supreme Court is now allowing investigations into parents who allow their minors to undergo this transgender ideology and medical transitioning. Is that child abuse? We'll have that discussion. Circle back, as Jen Psaki would do, on Jazz Jennings, one of the first ever transgender children to be a media hit with her show I Am Jazz, and multiple media outlets doing highlights of her in her story. I guess we call Jazz Jennings her because, like Taylor said, Jazz has been a girl since who even knows when, has never experienced life as a boy as far as we've seen. So is Jazz Jennings her at this point if you know nothing else? Plus, baby formula. We are experiencing shortages right now. If you go to your local grocery store, there is a good chance that the baby formula shelves are not fully stocked. We'll talk about why that's happening and a horrible tweet from Bette Midler giving her 2 cents on it. Plus, we'll talk the U.S. border. Oh my gosh, lots to get into today. Let's start off with Peter Doocy and Jen Psaki. Peter Doocy, who is a Fox News correspondent, often in the White House pressing Jen Psaki on all the different issues we talk about on this show, has posted a picture of he and Jen Psaki together, bidding her a good farewell from the White House as she leaves her spot as press secretary and I believe is taking on a position now at MSNBC. His tweet reads, "End of an era in the Brady briefing room. Good luck, Jen Psaki." And nice little picture, right? I think Peter Doocy's taller than we all thought he was, and Jen Psaki's shorter than we all thought she was. So that's just an interesting thing that I gleaned from this. But the responses have been interesting. A lot of people saying, how dare you take a picture with Jen Psaki? She is your ideological enemy, and she wants the worst for you. She hates you, Peter Doocy. And a lot of people... So there's been a scope. There's those people who say, how dare you take a picture? How dare you fraternize with the enemy, Peter Doocy? Others saying this is a beautiful moment that shows that despite our political differences, at the end of the day, we can still smile and take photos together. And others saying what this really points out, this picture between Peter Doocy and Jen Psaki, is that much of this is political theater. All the clips that you see on social media of them bickering back and forth and coming at each other's throats, at the end of the day, they're able to go grab drinks and take pictures together. And really, much of what we see from a political perspective in this country is theater. What are your thoughts on this? I would love to know down below. If Spencer's watching, if you could make a quick poll on that. Is this a happy moment that you like to see between two people who typically disagree? Is this a view of political theater that we're now getting our eyes put onto? Or is it an enemy taking a picture with an enemy, and it should not happen. I tend to be in the camp of this is just a cool thing. I love to see that at the end of the day, we can have this sort of symbolic moment of Jen Psaki moving on to another stage in her life, Peter Doocy continuing his stage in life as a Fox News correspondent, and despite our differences, we can take this picture, put the arm around us and smile, and move on from that. Taylor, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, I haven't seen so many comments about height differential in a picture since first time I posted one with Will Witt, but
short stack.
that's a good spot for the air horn. No, but I'm just kidding, Will. But to the degree that this is like a revelation of how this is all just political theater, and no one on Washington, on Capitol Hill, it really believes what they say, and it's all just this disingenuous nonsense, and that. Okay, I don't like that. But to the degree you could also interpret that and say, well, no, it's good because, there's this shared space and they're not mortal enemies and they're willing to put politics aside for a second and interact together as human beings. And that's could be a good thing for society. So, I mean, I don't know. Or then there's the just like, how dare he? They're the evil one. She's just the face of evil itself, and we should not even, dare to enter the same space as her unless it's to attack her. It's like, I'm definitely not in that camp, but and then I'm also not in the camp that necessarily like no one believes anything. Like politicians do like play golf together outside of work, which I think is generally like a healthy thing to have some neutrality and some space to like, okay, we're humans, we don't like each other, we don't agree on things, but like we can live in the same world. And okay. And my last thought, is that perhaps Peter Doocy this is just the troll of a lifetime, and he's just like, have a nice life, that type of thing.
Yeah, so. I don't feel like that's what it is. I feel like, what's amazing is like, Taylor, you have this example of like going and playing volleyball every weekend with your friends, and you completely disagree ideologically, and you're still able to like be competitive and play a game together, and it's still a fun time. I would love to see more of that. What this points out for me is something that Andrew Yang harkened on in an article that he wrote about why he left the Democratic Party. Now, I do not agree with Andrew Yang on virtually any sort of policy prescription that he has for this country, but he wrote this article saying, you know what, I'm identifying now as an independent because I've seen political theater up close in my presidential run, and while these candidates will go out there and they will quite literally stage and script the different bickering moments that they're going to have, the back and forth, who gets the air horn for roasting the other person, and then at the end of that, they're like, there's half off marks over down at TGI Fridays down there, and they go and do that. So much of what we see, as I always say when we're watching these political moments, is theater, and it's fake. And I would love to see these moments, like Peter Doocy and Jen Psaki having the arm around each other, these moments make it to the press secretary room and actually have those discussions in a way where you feel like it's not just two sides bickering with each other, but two people who can agree on issues but disagree on the solution. I wish this was not just like this, oh my gosh, why is it so crazy that we're seeing a conservative and a leftist take a photo together? Like, why do we feel the need to talk so much about it? That shows the state of our country, that this is somehow shocking that a conservative man would even think to take a photo with somebody who's a leftist.
It's absolutely scandalous. This is the plot of the next episode of Scandal, is that this photo. No, Jen on Facebook made me laugh. She said, my take is that they both look like they're just getting their picture taken, which is possibly true. That could be a conspiracy, Jen. Yeah. Maybe you're right. Maybe they just happen to be taking a photo and they're not trying to send some big message one way or another.
Right.
And maybe we're reading far too much into it by devoting airtime to it, but
very well could be.
Joke's on us.
But highlighting a beautiful moment nonetheless, I think, in the stage of political discourse. Now we're going to move on to Netflix, and this isn't bad news in regard to Netflix, which we're so used to having when it comes to their He's Expecting series, or the French movie Cuties that shows 11-year-old girls twerking, or the turmoil over Dave Chappelle's new comedy special and the jokes about trans people. No. What Netflix is doing is actually firing back at its woke employees and saying, hey guys, if you don't like working here and you don't like the content that you're working on, maybe you should find a new job. We'll read part of this memo that was put out. If you'd find it hard to support our content breadth, Netflix may not be the place for you, the memo states. Later adding that employees may be required to work on projects that they, quote, perceived to be harmful, and that if they have a hard time accepting their work assignment, they might not want to consider working at Netflix. Another quote here, entertaining the world is an amazing opportunity and also a challenge because viewers have different tastes and points of view. So we offer a wide variety of TV shows and movies, some of which can be provocative. We support the artistic expression of the creators we choose to work with, and that, quote, we let viewers decide what's appropriate for them versus having Netflix censor specific artists or voices. What another revelation. A picture of a conservative and a leftist. Wow. A company coming out and saying, hey, we're going to put out a bunch of different ideas. And guess what? The onus is on you as an individual to choose what ideas hit your ears. What an astounding thing to think about, that we could live in a pluralistic society that allows different people who are artists to express themselves in different ways, politically, spiritually, ethically, and morally. And we as consumers get to decide what we consume. We're just really learning things today.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we're a national platform, and we learned that a big chunk of the country doesn't really like it whenever we cater to a tiny segment of very loud, woke people who want to dictate all the content that we make. And so, we're going to cater to everybody. And shocker, if you work for this company that has a national platform, the onus is on you to deal with it if you don't like some of the stuff that we do, because shockingly, there are people who aren't like you and think differently from you in this country and in our audience that we serve. And you can't just, this is not a platform to impose your ideology on the world. It's the same thing like you said. It's a shared space effect, and it reminds me of like how we talk about New York Times and their journalism and how their job is to make journalism for everybody, adhere to journalistic standards, and just do your job and report on things happening in the world with objectivity. And they can't do that. They can't help themselves but try to use the platform that they have to impose their ideology. And this shouldn't be a headline that we're talking about. Breaking a national platform of streaming service that it does entertainment for everybody is just telling people not to be biased. And we're not going to cater to our wokest, most hyper segment of employees. But here we are.
Yeah, and I saw Christopher Rufo, who you know as the massive exposer of critical race theory and gender theory in schools, come out and say we should call this the Disney effect, because this does come on the heels of Netflix losing a massive amount of subscribers, I believe something like 200,000, and they were reporting that by June they were going to lose 2 million more from their streaming service. So I think maybe they're feeling the heat of, we have to really make content and make products that really represent the consumer base that's paying for the content that we make. And that's where we're going to get to, I think, with a lot of these massive corporations who are choosing to bow down to what I still think to be a very extreme fringe group of people who are calling for this sort of ideology to just infiltrate everything and just be injected into everything. And I think they're going, oh no, it's worth losing a few employees who represent this in order to build a fruitful company that really does service everybody. And by everybody, I do mean the people on the extreme left. I don't think Netflix is ever going to stop making content that panders to them as well. But hey, they'll also have content for you too. So it harkens back on what Elon Musk has tweeted about after going through this deal with Twitter that is now on pause. We'll see how that happens and where that lands. But where he said, if I'm doing my job right as the CEO of Twitter, which he is going to be temporarily, I believe, if I'm doing my job right, people on the extreme right of the aisle and people on the extreme left of the aisle will be equally mad because they will log into a platform that voices all the opinions that they do or do not want to see. And that's where we're at. And the people who represent the center or the liberal view of things or the semi-conservative or the semi-progressive side of things are just going to go, wow, this is what free speech and debate looks like. And of course, there's going to be some slurs here and some, quote, hate speech there, which I don't believe in. But that is the price that we pay for free speech, and free speech is priceless. So I love to hear this news from Netflix. It looks like video game companies are also going to be following Netflix in this in some way. PlayStation's boss, Jim Ryan, has come out and said, hey guys, in the wake of this Roe v. Wade news, if you're an employee at PlayStation, can we just respect that people have differing opinions on this? Can we respect that some people wake up in the morning and go, I'm pro-choice, and some people wake up in the morning and go, I'm pro-life? And of course, the left is not happy about it. They don't want to hear from their white male boss that we should accept the opinions of other people. And they're up in arms saying, how dare you put out something like this? And they're actually going as far as to urge other video game companies to come out with statements sort of disavowing this idea that we can overturn Roe v. Wade, because your video game company, where you go to play Fortnite and Valorant and Roblox and yell the N-word at people in your video game lobby, that's where you should be learning about where you should stand on Roe versus Wade and abortion rights.
Yeah, it's the politicization of everything, and I'm impressed with how many video games you're able to name right there. Is there any others you would add to that list?
No. League of Legends.
Okay, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm out of it after that.
I sent one of these stories to you this week, and one of these companies, these woke companies, was Bungie, which is near and dear to my heart, or was once upon a time, which made this hurt more than anything, because they created Halo back in the day, and they since sold that to another company, but then they made Destiny, which is another huge game. But yeah, they came out with this massive statement on abortion, and the fact that there are like third parties going after these companies, like, when are you going to say it? When are you going to say something? When are you going to come out with a statement? It's like, sir, this is a Wendy's.
I love that meme. Oh, it's so good. It is exactly like that. Sir, this is a Wendy's. Like, what are you talking about? And video games are notorious for being the space that you go to when you're done with PC culture and you're done with the wokeness, and you hear a 13-year-old white kid in middle school call you an N-word lesbian for like 5 minutes straight while you play a game. Like, that's what video games are notorious for. And you're telling me that I need to log into my video games and listen to your take on Roe versus Wade? Are you kidding me? It's like next week Valorant comes out with a skin that's like believe all women and like every woman has a right to choose. Come on. I'm just so done. And it's all theater. And what these video games companies are going to do is alienate their main audience, which I believe to be non-PC males. Those are the people playing your games. What are you going to pander to, the sexy leftist feminist Twitch streamers or something? Is that going to be your main audience? Because I can guarantee you that's not going to get you anywhere. And you are going to do what Netflix and Disney has done and go that whole, get woke, go broke. They're not going to pay for your video game anymore. That's not the experience that people want. And now people are setting their sights on Activision Blizzard, which is probably the most massive video game company in America.
Yeah, I mean, that's Warcraft, Call of Duty, some of the biggest games out there, for sure. They own it all.
Right, and now the employees at Activision Blizzard are like, I can't sit in my desk and code these video games if you don't tell me that all women deserve the right to an abortion. I cannot sit in my 9-to-5 job. That's probably not a 9-to-5 job. They're probably working from home at this point doing their jobs. I cannot sit in the comfort of my own home unless I log into my employee account and hear your take on Roe versus Wade and hear you cheer on some vigilante that undermined the integrity of our Supreme Court system. I cannot sleep at night. How dare you pay me a check if you can't do that for me?
I just wonder, I mean, we were already seeing the wave of this woke stuff. It feels like it's cresting. And, someone in the comments, John on Facebook said, Netflix didn't suddenly grow a heart. He said, Netflix ain't suddenly grow a heart. Mm-hmm. Their stock is down 50%.
Right.
And that is true, but maybe they're growing a brain now, because they're looking at the numbers and saying, well, guys, it looks like if we keep going down this path, we might be, like bankrupt. Yeah. And Disney's got to make the same calculation too, one would think. Right. And so these video game companies, no different. There's all this pressure from, like you said, a fringe extremist group that wants to impose and politicize everything and not allow us to just have these shared spaces, safe from wokeism. We need safe. I'm pro safe space again. If it's safe from woke garbage, being trying to indoctrinate me and my kids at every turn. So yeah, let's make children's content a safe space again. Make video games and sports and movies and entertainment a safe space again.
Yeah, safe meaning like we can all speak and we can all enjoy the things that we enjoy. For goodness gracious, like I can't even imagine sitting in like a writer's room or a production room at Netflix and like what that must have looked like for the past few years. It's unbelievable. They're like, well, I got this horror movie about a family that gets confronted and the dad protects them all and they're really pro-Second Amendment. They got guns and they stab up this guy. Nah. Too racist, too bigoted, too patriarchal. We can't have that. Okay, I have another one. What about a 5-year-old transgender, black, non-binary, disabled girl who makes waves by making all the other kindergartners into activists and building her own nonprofit? And they're like, hell yeah, I'll give that $20 million. And then they go, wait a second. They come back to the meeting next week and they're like, we just lost 100,000 subscribers from our subscription service. How did that happen? You're telling me they didn't want to watch the 5-year-old transgender activist? How dare they? And yes, if you don't have a heart, at least you have a brain. And this is why voting with your wallet and your time and your consumption is so important. And a lot of people don't place that much importance on it. Like, I'm not going to be shopping at Target anymore.
I was hoping you'd bring that up.
Yes, I'm bringing it up. Target is now chosen to take on 2 LGBTQ plus brands. And that's not the issue that I take with what they've decided to do. These brands, however, are selling compression tops and, quote, packing underwear for transgender youth and adults. And for those of you who aren't well versed in transgenderism and don't know what these things mean, compression garments are for young girls and women who want to press down their boobs to appear male, and packing underwear is so that those same young girls and women can put stuff in their underwear and pack it so that they look like a man down there. And upon hearing this news, a lot of transgender activists, allies hopped to Twitter and said, you know, this is a beautiful, wonderful thing that Target has done. And now what this is going to allow is for teens whose parents don't accept this ideology and their gender identity, they can now waltz into a Target and go, hey, mom, look, a sports bra. And not know that it's a compression garment, and they'll buy it. Or they'll go without mom and dad and buy this stuff and be able to do this. So, no, as much as I love Target, as much as when I see those red Targets, I get like a heroin-induced high, I will not be going into Target. And I know a lot of women who are watching this right now feel the same, and probably a lot of the men watching this right now are going to be so happy to hear that their wife or girlfriend is no longer going to be shopping at Target, because you have to do a lot of following around and a lot of sitting in the parking lot, so probably this is good news for you. But to the women who are crying over this news, you can live. You will survive this. Just don't shop at Target.
And it does work. Like, you know, I think what we're seeing with Netflix and what we've seen even with some of the parents standing up against CRT and school board meetings and stuff, if you make the powers that be feel it, they will reverse course, and it can happen. And we just need to send the message that woke capitalism, go woke, go broke. I mean, it's a very simple slogan, but there's a lot of truth to that. Like the commenter said before, you know, they may not grow a heart, they may not actually share our values, but if they feel it in their wallet, and like Daily Wire starting the Jeremy's Razors company because Gillette was so woke. It's like, if they start to feel it and people stop going to their movies, and, you know, Oscars viewership's going down, CNN's viewership's going down, New York Times subscriptions are going down, like when they feel this enough, I mean, that's how we fight back. And anyway, so yeah, you can vote with your wallet. You do have power, and that's the way to make change. You
do, and a lot of people are going to say, well, it's just me, I'm not going to make a dent. Just you with 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 other people makes quite a big dent, and almost an unignorable dent in their revenue. Now, if you cannot vote with your wallet, or you choose not to vote with your wallet, then cheat the system. Here's the next story. More than 1/3 of white students lie about their race on college applications, a new survey finds. We'll get into this. I saw this and immediately I was like, you know, Good for you, white boy. It is white boy summer after all, because you've learned what to do with this college application affirmative action BS that they're trying to push on people. This reads, a survey from Intelligent found that 34% of white students who applied to college and universities falsely claimed they were a racial minority on their application. The publication found that 81% of students who faked minority status did so to improve their chances of getting accepted. 50% of students who lied said they did it to get minority-focused financial aid. Most students, 48%, claimed to be Native American on their application. 13% falsely marked that they were Latino, and 10% falsely claimed to be Black. 9% of those surveys lied that they were Asian or Pacific Islander. And to that, I say good for you. I know people say, well, a lie is a lie. It's not good. But when you've been forced into this oppressive system that completely devalues all the work you've done in the education system for what? 12, 13 years of your life now that you've slaved away in this education system with the hope and sometimes the promise of being able to pursue higher education. And suddenly they go, I know you did all that work. I know you have a perfect SAT score. I know you're in all these extracurriculars that you worked on to make yourself well-rounded. I know you started all these clubs and did all these things for your school and your community. I know you went and volunteered and did all that, but you're white. It's not working for me. I need you to go hit a tanning bed for 15 hours and come back to me and claim to be a different race in order to get into college. And the fact that white students feel the need to do this should be a massive red flag for everybody working in higher education, for everybody who has their hand in a hat that is making these decisions surrounding affirmative action. Because you forced people's hand on this. Is a white kid gonna go, I know it's racist and everything, and I know you're discriminating and everything, but I guess I'll mark white anyways and I just won't go to college? No. They're going to cheat the system, and they're going to say, you know what? I am a Black, transgender, disabled 5-year-old so that I can get into college and I can go to Harvard. And odds are you put that down on an application and write your essay about it and you are in Harvard, you are in Yale, you are admitted into Cornell, you are admitted into Penn State. So what does that say about our college system, that not only are people doing this, but it works? It says here in the article, for the most part, Intelligent found that these white students tend to get away with their lies. About 3 in 4, or 77% of white applicants who faked minority status on their applications were accepted to those colleges. So what they've done is they've done you a favor by lying and pointing this out, because clearly they're meeting the academic standards, or whatever standards you've claimed that Black and Latino and Asian kids need to have to get into these colleges. Why anybody would lie and say they're Asian is beyond me, because we both know they're getting the shortest stick when it comes to this game. Asians meet every single possible marker that you can meet academically, socially, club-wise, extracurricular, volunteer activity-wise, and they're still not getting into the colleges that they deserve to be going to. So why any white person would lie, maybe they're just taking on a new challenge.
Well, also, how are we even saying that it's a lie when truth is subjective? That's their truth.
There we go.
And don't be a bigot and say that their truth is not truth. We just did an episode this past week on transracialism. And if you identify as another race, then in the new world of subjective truth and you living your truth, how can anyone take that away from you? If that's what makes you happy to be that other race, then you want to identify that way. According to the logic that's taught at these universities,
Taylor.
And how could you say that they're lying?
Checkmate. You sound like me 4 years ago. That's beautiful. Elizabeth Warren certainly did it, because she's a Native American, right, guys?
Exactly.
That white lady's a Native American. So I just love this. I just love that this is just like a checkmate moment. Gotcha. You tried to rig something against us, and guess what? We fought it, and now we're on the other side of it. And I also love that they got away with it. Nobody was like, you don't really look Latino. You don't really look Asian. You don't really look Black. Because you can't say that. Once you're of minority status, nobody can say anything to you. Have you seen, I think it was my boyfriend sent this to me. I don't know if it was South Park. No, I think it was American Dad or something like that. And this woman's she's watching porn at the counter of a bar, and the bartender's like, excuse me, ma'am, you can't be watching that. And she's like, I'm transgender. And he's like, oh, carry on.
Yeah, that's about where we are in society today.
That's really where we are. Like, I could go out into the street and do anything right now. I could literally go and like slap a white woman across the face, and then she'd call the police, and I'd be like, I'm black. And they'd be like, carry on, miss. In fact, would you like to slap me really quickly before you go? That's how it is. So the fact that white kids are, taking that back and going, you know what, I'm going to stand up to this and I'm going to do something about it, and no one's ever going to be the wiser because they don't check enough anyways. I honestly imagine that people looking through in these admissions offices just literally look at race and then go, you're accepted, you're accepted, you're accepted, you're accepted. And that's why this is allowed to happen. So they pointed out a flaw in your system, and they pointed out the most tremendous flaw is that your system is racist.
White boy summer is off to a good start.
White boy summer. Chet Hanks would be
he'd be
laughing his ass
all
off.
over this. But hey, this is what I say all the time: chess, not checkers. This is what that means.
This
chess,
is
not
chess,
checkers.
not checkers.
Turn their game on itself.
Yeah, when your reality gets flipped upside down and somebody, like Taylor likes to say, is peeing on you and calling it rain, you find a way to put the pee back on them.
That was a great, yeah.
I think it works.
It works.
I think you guys understand it. You guys get it. Find a way to put the pee back on them. We got to put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah. Omelette Benobi, unapologetic. She's not apologizing for that statement.
Yeah, I'm not apologizing for it. I'm not taking that back. Dropbox had a recent stand-up doing exactly that. One of their hirers tweeting out that they have in a new open position a mid-level designer at Dropbox, but they're only going to be considering, or at least prioritizing, BIPOC. And for those of you who aren't well-versed in woke leftist speak, it's a person of color. And URM, which I was like, what the hell is URM? Underrepresented minority group. That's who they're going to be considering for that. So if you guys are using Dropbox right now, maybe don't. Because they don't care about who you are as an individual, whether or not you are Black, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, whatever, or white. They do not care for you. They are fully willing to rob people of color of the ability to compete within a market of ideas, of values, of standards, of work, and they are fully willing to rob white people of any opportunity to get a job in any workplace. So don't support these businesses. The same thing I would say for these video game companies who are coming out and making these statements. The same I would say for Netflix, for Disney, for Target. Dropbox. Add them to your list, baby.
Yeah, add them to your list, but also, if you happen to need a job right now, just go ahead and identify as whatever race that they're hiring for.
Right.
And Dropbox is hiring, guys. So now's a good time to put in your application.
And when you show up for the interview and they're like, you can just be like, I have the same thing that Sean King has. And that is why I look like Talcum X instead of Malcolm X. That is why my race doesn't register. I have a strong case of vitiligo, and that's just where I'm at right now in life. And I guarantee you.
Which is another disability and layer of oppression, by the way.
That is true.
So
I
you could really turn that on them.
I guarantee you guys have the job. Let's move on here and see what else we have to talk about. So the Texas Supreme Court, according to Associated Press, is now going to resume investigating parents of transgender youth for child abuse. Now, this was something that they went back and forth on and said, we're going to do it. And then some judges said, no, you can't do that. That's not allowed. And now apparently they are resuming these investigations. I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. Do you think allowing your youth and your children to be injected with gender theory and to go along with what we believe is a distortion of reality and say your little boy's a girl or your little girl's a boy, do you think that is child abuse? I'm starting to lean in that camp because when you look at the outcomes of what these children go through, which we are going to talk about one right now, it is not good. And it's an interesting form. If this is deemed child abuse, which I'm in that camp, I believe at the moment, it's an interesting form of child abuse because it's not something that you can really see immediately when you start doing these things. And it's actually so entrenched in these ideas of happiness and affirmation that people are being tricked into, thinking that this is actually the right thing to do for their kids, when in reality it's not. And I think these outcomes when it comes to this ideology and this transgender theory and gender theory can creep up on you in a way that you don't even associate them with how you've treated your kid. And we're going to talk about this in relation to one kid by the name of Jazz Jennings, who is now grown up. I don't know how old Jazz Jennings is now, but she grown now and is making her own choices. You might recognize the name Jazz Jennings because she was given a show called I Am Jazz. She's also notorious for being one of the first transgender youths to ever be truly highlighted by the media. In Australia, the BBC, and UK, here in the United States, everybody was talking about Jazz Jennings, an 8-year-old whose parents decided he's not a boy, he's a girl. Here's one of the first videos of Jazz.
Set, go.
But in this family, there's a difference. The baby girl of the family, 8-year-old Jazz, was born a boy.
At first I thought, oh, how cute. You know, he wants to play with a doll. Who cares? You know, we're really open-minded. But when it continued on month after month and like became year after year and it became stronger, I knew, you know, this wasn't a phase. It's getting more intense.
What's getting more intense? She said first he wanted to play with dolls, and then that continued month after month and year after year, and now I'm thinking my son is a boy? Are you kidding me? Let me take a breath before this makes me wickedly upset. Let's really think about this. I want to function with the utmost sympathy for this mother. Your son is exhibiting feminine traits, like playing with dolls, liking dresses, liking the color pink. And this sort of activity continues for what some might consider an extended time span. For a little kid, I don't consider anything to be an extended time span. Kids like what they like, and that's no indication of what their gender is. And she thinks because my boy likes all these things, he must be a girl. And at the ripe age of 8 years old, starts transitioning her kid, if not medically, socially. Now, Jazz is also famous, I think, I have to look up and confirm this actually, if Taylor, if you could at some point, I think was put on puberty blockers to completely halt the puberty of Jazz, and again, was one of the first individuals where this was highlighted in the media in a show called I Am Jazz, where they followed Jazz's story. So this is truly, if we think about it, a kid that never got to experience life as a boy. So to Jazz, all she's ever been is a girl. So what do you even do in that sense? There's no reverting back. There's no fixing that. Here's an article from Daily Wire. This is what Jazz looks like now. And I don't have to tell you why there might be something concerning about where Jazz is at now. This article will tell you more about what is concerning, and you can go and look this up on the Daily Wire. The troubling case of Jazz Jennings, the media's first transgender child, talks about depression and anxiety and these ongoing mental health issues that Jazz has experienced her entire life. Jazz's entire life has been experiencing mental health issues. I wonder what could possibly be the root of that. Not only the idea that your kid is trans at 8 years old and undergoing that socially and medically, but maybe the fact that you placed that kid's identity in front of the entire world, not just your country, not just your local news station, the entire world watched as Jazz Jennings underwent this medical transition. How disgustingly delusional do you have to be as a parent to allow that to happen to your kid on any basis? And I would say the same thing for the parents who do toddlers and tiaras and all this pageantry and honey boo boo and all this funny, all this crazy stuff where your kid is now the epicenter of a massive nationwide or countrywide or worldwide TV show. It's unbelievable that a parent is willing to submit their child to such a thing. And you know it's because money is involved and that they're getting paid to do this. Or they might just be convinced enough that highlighting their child's story is going to solve these issues when it doesn't. So now Jazz is experiencing mental health issues that have been with her entire life at this point. She's morbidly obese, over 230 pounds, and has no sensation in her lateral, I don't even know how to, in her down there
Sex
area,
organs.
in her sex organs, has no feeling whatsoever down there, and is extremely concerned about that. Not only from just a human standpoint, from a sexual experience standpoint, from just leading a normal life after you have been submitted to sex reassignment surgery, which is sterilization and complete and utter mutilation of you and your body parts, now has no sensation, which is something that people do not talk about when it comes to this stuff. And I'll be interested to see if this does spark a discussion on this. Of course, this is being discussed on Daily Wire. Who knows if anybody else is going to pick this up. But I can't see this story ending well or ending on a high note. And the unfortunate part of all this is because the indoctrination started so young with Jazz, she will never know either. And she'll never be able to trace back what her life was before that because she was 8 years old. And I'm sure they were indoctrinating with this ideology far before 8 years old. 8 years old is just when the public knew about it. So imagine how long this was going on before. And I am going to call Jazz she because she doesn't know anything different. She's been a girl her entire life. And to see a young boy, a young man, be stripped of that for absolutely no reason other than liking girls' things is so crazy. And this is one of what is going to be thousands, if not tens of thousands of stories moving on, because this is being adopted by our court system. It's being adopted by media. It's being adopted by schools. And kids are being told that if your parents don't agree with it, we're your new parents and we'll allow this to happen. But nobody ever highlights the devastating effects of this. And you can go as far as to think that Jazz is not even aware that her parents are what caused this for her. And that's what it's going to be. And that's so unfortunate.
Yeah, and to answer your question from earlier, Jazz was put on puberty blockers at age 11, according to Barry Weiss.
11?
Yeah.
11 placed on puberty blockers? I don't even remember what I was like at 11 years old. And 11 years old being put on puberty blockers that months later can be completely cause so much irreversible damage, as Abigail Shrier would coin, and completely sterilize you and ruin your body forever. 11 years old. And what our society did and what our culture did and what Hollywood did was give it a TV show. Because we love it. We love salaciousness. We love things that push the boundaries of the human experience and the human psyche. And instead of going, oh gosh, that's so wrong, we went, here's $1 million in a TV show and we'll supply the cameras and the cameramen as long as you sign over your entire soul and your right to privacy for the rest of your childhood and your adult life. And that's what happened. At the behest of her parents, too. Unbelievable. And it's cases like this that you see and you go, oh yeah, that's child abuse. You see that and you go, yeah, you totally abused your child. And it's an abuse that you don't get to see until later. It's an abuse that does not come to fruition. It's a trauma that does not set in place until you're an adult. Because as a kid, you couldn't even understand the trauma that was being inflicted on you. Oh, wow.
And this is also a great time to underscore this whole story, underscores what we talked about in your special this last week that was released, where the title of it is literally Why Children Should Not Be Choosing Their Gender. And you go into the research of Ken Zucker, who says that if you don't lie to kids and tell them there are two sexes and you are this sex, then what is it, 70-80% of the time they grow out of it. If they're okay, so your kid is a boy and he's interested in dolls, they'll grow out of that if you don't start this process of blindly affirming them in this direction and then buying them dresses and then putting them on puberty blockers when they're 11 years old,
right?
And then setting them up for a life of despair like this.
Man, there's one phrase that solves it all, and you go, oh yeah, Timmy, boys can like dolls. All they had to say the first time that Jazz, or whatever the given name was to this child when he was born, all they had to say was, yeah, yo, boys can like dolls too. Go play with your sisters with the dolls too. That's totally fine. Boys do that all the time. All you have to do. But instead, in just wanting attention and wanting to be something new and wanting to do something different, you convince your child that there's something that they're not. And oh my gosh, I could hark on this for another 10 years, but I will not. I will move on.
And go watch the special because everything's laid out in detail and it's really well written and really well researched.
Right.
by Amala. So, and really well edited by Scott. So we put a lot of it into those, and I just think it's a great resource for you to be informed on what's going on with gender theory and what the arguments are of why children should not be transitioning. So
right, and fight it. Yeah, because people are going to come at you and say, well, why don't you think children should be able to be who they want to be? And that's a hard argument to rebuttal because of how beautiful it sounds and how wonderful it sounds. That video will arm you with the information that you need to have a rebuttal every single time this comes up in debate, because it is coming up and it will continue to come up until we just stomp out this ridiculousness and this new distorted reality that we're all supposedly supposed to be living in. So yeah, go check out that special. Children should not.
I'll drop the link in the chat right now.
Yes, he'll drop the link. I don't even have to tell you the title. He'll drop the link for you. Now we're going to move on to what is our last story of the day. Everybody's talking baby formula. And apparently in many states right now in this nation, if you're going into your grocery store and you look for baby formula, you may be hard pressed to find some, or at least the shelves are not as stocked as they should be. This comes after news of a Michigan factory that makes Similac formula, one of the most popular formulas in the United States, being shut down. And it was shut down because apparently they had a bacteria problem with a lot of the formula that they were producing. It was going out. 4 babies ended up getting bacterial infections, and 2 of them subsequently died. A horrible, horrible thing. Now, apparently this shutdown and closure of that particular plant has now been mixed in with the beautiful cocktail that was created by pandemic supply chain problems, and now we are experiencing a baby formula shortage. And this is really hitting American mothers hard. As you can imagine, they are running to the grocery store trying to buy up as much formula as they can. And I imagine you would be sufficiently freaked out to hear this news, especially if you are a mother who cannot breastfeed, which happens a lot of women struggle to breastfeed or have multiple children that require feeding, and they can, have enough supply in their natural breast to feed maybe 1.5 kids, but they can't feed all of their children. This is a very normal thing. Kids don't latch and they can't breastfeed. There's so many reasons why an American mother might need baby formula. Somebody who didn't know that is Bette Midler. And Bette Midler decided to tweet out, try breastfeeding. It's free and available on demand. That's her hot take to people going, oh my gosh, I am so worried that I won't be able to feed my baby because I cannot find formula. And if you guys want to check somebody out who's actually going in the streets and talking to people about this, Savannah Hernandez has done a recent video about this where she goes and talks to people about this current administration and the baby formula problem. So a lot of people are saying, well, it's not this administration's fault. This company, this factory had to shut down because of the bacterial infections. By all means, yeah, if you have to shut down something because it's killing children, yeah, that's something that we have to go through. You can't blame that on any one person, and certainly not this current administration. But mix that with the pandemic supply chain shortages that we've all went through. Why? At whose behest? At their behest. I think you have a sufficient enough reason to go, I'm giving you a little bit of blame here, and it's something that you better fix. And what it's also pointed out is that we in the United States have X'd out and not allowed a lot of different formula companies to be able to sell here, a lot of foreign different ones to be sold here, even though they're healthy and safe, and sometimes safer than the U.S. brands that we've had, because we've allowed these major formula companies to basically throw money at the government and say, oh no, we're the only ones who are able to sell here. And I went through this because a friend of mine is actually having babies very, very soon and is looking into formulas from like Germany and Spain and seeing if he can buy them illegally to get sent over to the United States for his children. Because even if we weren't dealing with these supply chain issues and this shutdown here in the United States with baby formula, other countries have better baby formulas that are healthier for children, that don't have all these chemicals that the FDA here for some reason allows in our formulas, because I don't know, they've been lobbied or paid out, or they're in the back pocket of some of these companies that are producing this stuff. So this was already an ongoing issue with finding good and healthy and actually natural baby formulas for babies here in the United States, but now you can't even get the ones that are not as good for your child. And I can only imagine the amount of stress that a new mother must be going through right now to be experiencing this. And this is hitting people in low-income communities, in the middle class, in higher-income communities too. And what has come out in the wake of this is this picture. I wish I could zoom in on it a little bit for you. Let me try here. This is the baby formula section at the U.S. border for people who are illegally entering this country, and it looks fully stocked. Of course, this is, I think, just applesauce, so don't worry about that. But this is baby food, and here is the formula section. Apparently, one of our seated representatives tweeted this out, and of course, it has been the subject of many a fact check. But as far as Snopes is concerned, there is no reason that this particular photo is faked or doctored in any way, shape, or form, and it seems to be legit. In May 2022, this is a photo from the U.S. border of formula that's been given to people who are entering this country illegally. Now, am I advocating that you don't feed little babies who are coming here illegally because their parents bring them and that we should take the formula? No, I'm not saying that. But it does speak to where our priorities lie as a nation, that right now we are in the midst of a great debate, that I think a debate that has now been shut down, of whether or not we send, $40 billion to Ukraine to fight a war that we are not, and probably should not, be involved in. Well, we are involved in now. When you send aid and you help them militarily and you allow them to build a defense, you are involved in the war by proxy. But isn't that interesting that as we are in the midst of a homelessness crisis, a drug crisis, this formula crisis with our own American mothers, that we have fully stocked formula at the U.S. border for people entering the country illegally, and $40 billion that we are speculating whether or not should be sent out to Ukraine, that has luckily been stopped, I believe, and it will hopefully not become a discussion again. But something to think about. Something to think about when it comes time to vocalize your opinion on how you are being treated. Think about the grocery store line. Think about how expensive those groceries are. Think about even when you go to the grocery store, sometimes you can't find the things you need. And God forbid you need gas to go to the grocery store. Here in LA, it's upwards of $6 a gallon. So just think about all these things and think about whether or not you were experiencing these things 2 years ago. I bet the answer is no. And that's all I'm going to say. What a week in review. Gosh.
Yeah, I mean, there was so little to talk about today, but somehow we got through it.
Yeah, so few stories. Any interesting comments, commentary, anything you'd like to say, Taylor?
I did have the passing thought, speaking of 2 years ago. Do you remember during the pandemic, like a couple of companies, like big companies like Coca-Cola and I think Tito's Vodka and some others came out and started to answer the crisis of a shortage of hand sanitizer, stopped making what they normally make and started using some of their production to solve this crisis of a lack of hand sanitizer, which come to find out, we found later, the virus doesn't even really spread through contact, and all that was just people freaking out.
Whoopsie doopsie.
But where's that happening right now with the baby formula crisis?
Where is it? And I hope I'm going to have faith in the fact that there are people everywhere being affected by this, and there are going to be companies that step up to the task and say, tell us what we need to do to make this stuff, and we will start to make it. I still have faith that there are good, meaning people, and that even if there aren't, there are people who happen to be affected by this that run these companies that are going to go, I need baby formula for
Target,
my own
can
kids.
you spare some of your manufacturing, bandwidth from all of the chest binding and maybe redirect some of that to the baby formula? That'd be great.
I know the teeny boppers need chest binders and packing underwear, but can you please make baby formula for the next generation of kids that you would like to indoctrinate? At least think about that. At least think about this new generation of kids that you want to be in public school to indoctrinate with gender theory and critical race theory and make the formula for them.
Just think, you won't be able to groom them unless they grow up. So,
Oh, it's so dark. Wow. If we have nothing else, ladies and gentlemen, we have comedy, and we can laugh at everything that's happening right now and throw some good fun at it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed sticking around and talking about this week in review, because sometimes the news is bleak, and I don't want to treat the news like it's bleak, even though it is. I just want to talk about it, give our opinions on it, hear your guys' opinions on it. I'd love to know, what was the most interesting story that you think we covered today, and what is your take on it? Is there something that you wish I had said? Is there something where you disagree with something that I said? Drop that in the comments down below. Are you a young mom, an expecting mom, somebody who's running a family right now who's being affected by this baby formula shortage. I know plenty of people who are either planning to start families or who have started families that are feeling this right now and having trouble with it and experiencing quite a bit of anxiety and fear surrounding it. Let me know in the comments down below. Is this something that is affecting your state, your city, wherever you're living? I am so curious. Guys, we're going to be back on Monday, and Liz Wheeler is going to be on the show. You probably know her from OAN. From OAN or the Liz Wheeler Show. She's also a conservative political commentator and author. So quite a big name. I hope you guys love her, and we're going to be talking about exactly that, the grooming debate. Is there grooming going on? Joe Rogan had some heated words to say about it, and we are going to step into the conversation and give our take on it and react to some videos of what teachers are doing in the classroom. So I can't wait to see you guys there. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I'm going to spend mine chilling like a villain. I'm not doing anything. Let me know what you're doing this weekend.
You're not going to be sitting and reading the news and looking at Twitter feed and seeing all this crazy stuff all weekend long?
When I go home, this is not my life. This is my life for while I work, and then I go home and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to chill out and do other things, because if I had this in my brain all day long, I think it would rot out of my head. So
it's 85 degrees in Los Angeles this weekend, so the gas is finally totally worth it.
Right.
And the taxes and the homelessness and everything else.
All for
we
the
got
weather.
one nice weather weekend this year.
Right. So you can go get in the beach, and your polluted beach, and hang out there.
Step on some needles or try to avoid that. And
Right. Accidentally overdose on fentanyl, just walking down the beach.
Oh, God. That's so dark.
Oh, it's so dark. But ladies and gentlemen, we love it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. We will see you on Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. You can also listen to us on Google Play, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review, because the leftists hate us and they leave us 1-star reviews. We don't need that. We need you. So give us a like, a subscribe, a notification bell, and follow us on all other platforms. We'll see you Monday. Bye, guys.